Japan, Christmas Eve 1988. Rockman 2 is released to the public. It's an almost immediate hit, even though its predecessor wasn't considered successful enough for a sequel. Rockman 2 was a passion project by the dev team. It improves on everything that Rockman 1 offered. The graphics were colorful, creative, and world-building. The soundtrack was highly praised and still is to this day. The gameplay was fluid, fun, just challenging enough, and has proven itself over the years to be timeless. This was an action platformer full of running, jumping, shooting, and powering up. 6 months later, on June 2nd, 1989, Mega Man 2, the English translation of Rockman 2, would hit store shelves in America. It would go on to be considered both the personal favorite and the best game in the series by many fans and critics alike. Sometime in the mid-90s, I was at my grandparents' house in the middle of the woods on a private road, secluded in the middle of nowhere. While my dad talked to my grandmother, I walked into the living room where she had an NES set up for us kids to play. I remember her having all of the basics: Super Mario Brothers, Tetris, Bad Dudes. There were plenty of games in the cabinet under that old console TV. I was never sure where they came from, but on this day, there was something new there. A new cartridge sitting on the couch next to the TV with this strange man in blue armor emblazoned on the cover. Mega Man 2. I was immediately intrigued because blue is my favorite color. But when I first popped in this cartridge, I had no idea what I was in for. And when the intro cutscene played, well, something inside of me from that moment on changed forever, and I feel like it really defined who I would become. I cannot explain the feelings I felt watching that intro, and jumping into the game just blew me away. It's this robot guy with a gun for an arm fighting other robot guys. All of them have these amazing, unique designs and colors. The levels are all themed for the robots you're fighting. It was just overload for my child brain. It must have been obvious from the start that I loved this game because my grandmother let me take it home that day. I remember immediately running inside when I got home, playing the game in my living room, showing them what I had learned, jumping and shooting, and just loving something. I'd found a new favorite game, a new favorite character, a new standard of gaming. If it wasn't doing something like Mega Man, it wasn't good to me. And even though I had no idea what anime was at the time, I think I can credit this game with subconsciously making me a fan of that. You know, the whole anime art style. Even in 8 bits with little tiny sprites, it's still really obvious that these characters were supposed to look like anime characters. That's just how good the sprite design is. And the music, without question, is why, to this day, I'm still a fan of rock and roll. And that's not just because in Japan the main character's name is Rock and his sister's name is Roll. Oh no. The soundtrack is an 8-bit rock anthem, and a perfect one at that, ranging from fast and energetic tracks to more synth-pop rock styles. Not to mention, it all sounds like a rock album while also matching these tracks to the aesthetics of the stages. It's just perfect. I couldn't have asked for a better game to have magically appeared in my life at such an important time in my development. It set the stage for everything I would grow up to love, from punk rock to anime to well-designed gaming. It's pretty obvious that Mega Man is supposed to look like an anime, but die-hard fans know he's heavily, inspired by another anime robot boy, Astro Boy. And Astro Boy was inspired by Pinocchio, and they all share that same story. A kindly old man creates what is essentially a fill-in for a son that he doesn't have, and that creation goes on to learn and do great things, learning what it means to be human. It's a simple premise, but one with a lot of heart, a lot of room for growth, and of course, in Mega Man's case, a premise that makes it prime for tons of franchisable spin-offs. Wait. Okay, you thought I was gonna stop at just talking about Mega Man 2. Oh no. I wanted to talk about my entire experience with discovering Mega Man. Every step of the way. How he became my favorite video game character, but also how he's stayed my favorite. And to do that, we have to talk about the next Mega Man game that I would, again, discover completely by chance. One that for some reason just happened to show up in our house on a CD on the same day that our family got its first computer. And a game that, again, would completely change my perspective on gaming. Mega Man X. Wait, there's 10 Mega Man games? Oh, you sweet innocent child. There are dozens of Mega Man games. I'm not going to give you a deep, in-depth rundown of every game, but we are going to touch on every series, which means that we'll be talking about a lot of them. This entire franchise means a lot to me, and while that love started with Mega Man 2, a love of everything Mega Man would really start here. On December 17th, 1993, Rock Man X, later released in North America as Mega Man X in 1994, blew players' minds. Innovating on the classic series, the X series added new gameplay and character control features. This was the first Mega Man game to feature what players would come to call an intro stage, or a stage that you're immediately thrown into upon starting the game. This was new, as prior games had you immediately choosing which boss you would fight, but this one immediately throws you into the middle of a city being ravaged by sinister robots gone rogue. And the stakes are immediately apparent as you watch civilians flee in vehicles away from the attackers. The stage teaches you about Mega Man's new abilities in a creative way, putting you in situations where you have to figure them out in order to progress. But the best thing is that it teaches you that you might feel powerful now, but you're really not. But you can be, because a new character, Zero, shows up to tell you that you can make all of your anime badass fantasy dreams come true.
もう一人のヒーロー、ロックマン X。スーパーファミコンで新登場。Capcom.
The first time that I played Mega Man X on my PC, I was in awe. I had been under the impression that Mega Man 2 was the only Mega Man game that existed. I didn't pay attention to the 2 at the end of the title. The internet wasn't really a thing that you could use to find out that sort of information at the time either. And I was like, maybe 5 or 6 years old? The world was new to me, so I didn't think about that kind of stuff. So seeing this new version of Mega Man that everyone was calling X, and the game having dialogue and a story and characters that were speaking, it was just amazing. Going through that intro stage really makes you feel like the fate of the world is at stake. And it makes you feel like you have a lot of work to do to be able to save it. When Zero shows up and saves your ass from being annihilated by Vile, this purple dick in a giant mech suit, the first thing that goes through your mind is, I want to be as badass as that guy. Or girl? Because at the time there was no voice acting and we couldn't really be sure if Zero was a guy or a girl or whatever, and he had this weird chest armor, and later on he had green jewel boobs.
Oh, this has become a real pain. I want a full explanation when this is all over.
It also helps that, again, the soundtrack is just a rock lover's dream. In the previous games, the soundtrack was influenced by lots of classic rock bands, but this game's music leans heavily into 80s and 90s heavy metal influences. All of these songs have these melodies that are really reminiscent of 80s and 90s heavy metal guitar riffs. And again, that solidified my love of that sound, that style, these chord progressions. It continued using soundscapes to bring the world to life. Each track matched perfectly with the level that it played in. It also helps that metal music kinda has this general stigma of being dark, because the story in Mega Man X is also a lot grittier and serious, and it's just all combined into this perfect recipe that creates this amazingly dark Mega Man game. Of course, both the classic and the X series feature a ton of games and even spin-offs of their own. There's plenty to enjoy about these 2D platformers, but as I got older, I'd make some dumb decisions. I'd stupidly trade in my entire childhood NES and Sega Genesis collection for a PlayStation 2. But even though I didn't have access to those old games anymore, my experiences with the Blue Bomber would continue on many new consoles. I would own the Game Boy versions of the classic Mega Man games, which I would play on car rides and trips to my grandma's house. Mega Man 8 was actually the first game that I bought for my PlayStation 2, even though it was a PlayStation 1 game. As I got a little older, I would rent every single Mega Man X game that I could from Blockbuster, even X6. And let me just say, if you think games today are hard, try being a preteen playing Mega Man X4, 5, and 6. Fighting Sigma as a little kid with no internet is not easy.
Stay tuned, we'll be right back after these messages.
We bought my son Brian several Mega Man games over the years. It seemed innocent enough. I mean, Mega Man's a good guy, right? But seriously, it got a little out of hand. It was Mega Man this, Mega Man that, Mega. Yeah! But we've come to an understanding. It's homework, yard work, visiting Grandma, then Mega Man.
Power up! There's a Mega Man for everybody. Mega Man, all the action you need. Each sold separately, rated E for everyone.
Oh, sorry, Grandma. Ah, it's cheating!
Oh, Mega Man!
I would also discover the Mega Man cartoon. It wasn't an anime, it was actually produced in America, but it's worth bringing it up because seeing it randomly on TV one morning as a child blew my mind. It was rare to see something gaming related on television back when I was a kid, and this was my favorite character in a cartoon show on TV. And the show isn't amazing by any means, but still a fun thing to watch for fans of the Blue Bomber. But as I would discover next, Mega Man wouldn't stay two-dimensional forever. Not on TV, but more importantly, not in video games. Mega Man Legends, or Rockman Dash, was released in 1997 in Japan and around a year later in the US and Europe. Bringing Mega Man into a new generation of hardware meant updating the gameplay, and to do that, Mega Man would be making his first jump into a 3D stage. But that wasn't the only difference. Gone was the stage select screen, and gone were many of the characters we knew as staples of the series. This was an open-world action game with RPG elements. Mega Man Legends was kind of like the Mega Man series version of Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. This was a big step for the series, and even though it wasn't as successful as previous games, today it's considered a cult classic. And with only 2 games and 1 spin-off in the series, it's no surprise when fans ask for more Mega Man games, the Legends series is always the first one that's brought up. Especially after they canceled Legends 3! Now if you're sensing a pattern here in my discovery of Mega Man games, that's because there is definitely a pattern here. I got my hands on pretty much every new Mega Man series by accident. Mega Man Legends was one that I discovered shortly after getting my PlayStation 2. I remember walking into an EB Games in the mall and seeing it sitting there on the shelf, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The screenshots on the back show Mega Man running around in a 3D world. He's got spiky anime hair. It appealed to me so much, and I couldn't wait to get home and play it, and when I did, well, a new favorite game in the Mega Man series had been crowned. Firing up this game for the first time and being immediately thrown into this Indiana Jones-esque dungeon, trying to escape, builds a world. And it tells you that this is an adventure. You don't know anything about the world outside, but you want to, and to discover that world, you have to get out of this place. And as you do that, you're told about these new enemies called Reaverbots, all leading up to fighting this giant one, and it was kind of scary. I'd argue that this game is actually darker than the X series, but not in a way where it's trying to be. It's got elements that are kind of terrifying when you do some research, and the story develops as you learn more about these Reaverbots and about why they're on the island that you've crash landed on. And as you learn more, the story gets kind of existential. I'm not going to tell you that the story is life-changing, it isn't, but I do think it's creative and fun, and it left me wanting more. And we'd get more in Mega Man Legends 2 just a little while later. My friend actually bought this one after playing Legends 1 with me, and we played the heck out of it. Everything about the first game was improved. The only thing that I'd really complain about is that since you're flying around in the ship now, it doesn't feel like an open world game. I liked that everything in the first one was contained to this one island, but the series had to grow, and to do that, we had to go to other places in the world. It was the only way that they could tell a story this big in the Mega Man universe. I won't spoil it for you, but Mega Man Legends 2 ends on one of the biggest cliffhangers known to Mega Man fans. We'll probably never get closure. Although a sequel to Legends 2 was announced and actually deep into development for the Nintendo 3DS, due to internal struggles between Capcom and a driving force in the Mega Man franchise, Keiji Inafune, the 3rd installment was cancelled, to the intense dismay of Mega Man fans everywhere.
Game Boy Advance。エグゼは今未体験エリアに初のチームバトル。戦いが変わる。エグゼに何が起こったのか。 ロックマン X でファイチームオブブルース12月9日発売カプコン
The next adventure for Mega Man would see him going digital. In 2001, the Blue Bomber would get 2 new titles in the same series. Set in a world where smartphone-like devices called PETs are used by everyone in their daily lives, and personal navigator units are used by humans to browse the internet, Mega Man Battle Network 1 and 2 released less than a year apart. And while the first game was very rough around the edges, the series would again improve upon itself and perfect its formula for the second game.
The year is 2000X.
Wait. Haven't we heard this before? Yeah, we have. Well, it's kind of confusing, sometimes unclear, and really hard to explain. The Mega Man Battle Network series takes place at the same time as the classic Mega Man series, but in a completely separate timeline. The Battle Network games share a cast of characters in name only with the other timeline, but make no mistake, these games really have nothing to do with each other. That's okay with me though. I was all about this franchise. Looking back at it today, it kind of feels like this was the first Mega Man that truly belonged to my generation. I was around 12 or 13 when I discovered that the Battle Network series even existed. Again, I walked into a local GameStop and saw a used copy sitting in their little glass case, and it called my name immediately. I had absolutely nothing to go on because it was just a loose copy of the game. It didn't come in the box, it was used. But it said Mega Man on the cartridge, and that's all that I really needed to know to tell myself that I was gonna have a good time. And as soon as I got to the first boss, Airman, I immediately understood what was going on. The gameplay didn't immediately hook me, but the world and the unique take on Mega Man did. And since I was playing this game totally blind, every encounter was new, but felt familiar because I knew a lot of the characters from the previous games, even if they did look different and were in completely different forms. But one thing that I wasn't even aware that I was missing from the previous games was Mega Man getting the powers of the bosses after he defeats them. That doesn't happen in Battle Network. But then something does happen. Your first style change. A permanent upgrade to Mega Man EXE, or X, or however you want to pronounce this. Now Mega Man can become powered up with a combination of powers and elements permanently. Maybe Heat Gut style, allowing for more powerful buster attacks with a fire element, or Electric Team style, which allowed you to have more powerful Navi chips in your deck than you normally could, while also sporting an electric style buster attack. Again, this blew my mind and made the game a little bit more customizable to your playstyle. But in setting up its own world, its own timeline, its own style of gameplay, and its own lore, it also predicted a lot of what the world is like today. The PET devices are almost exact copies of our smartphones that we have today. They kind of predicted AI like Alexa being something that we would use to accomplish daily menial tasks. Cyber terrorism is a very real threat today. It's kind of crazy, but that's why I think these games still hold up. It was set in a very futuristic world, but at the same time seemed like something we'd be living in someday. I just don't think they expected it to be a reality so fast. The gameplay is no longer about jumping and shooting. The game uses a chip, or really a card battle system. You collect chips in all parts of the game to use in battle and defeat enemies. Each chip has its own element and effects, and even a target field. And this makes it an action strategy game. While you're moving around, charging your buster and firing, you're waiting for the next chance to fire off a chip attack, counting down the seconds for your chance to use more chips, and really thinking of what your next move will be. Toss that on top of an isometric top-down view and you're looking at one of the most unique action RPGs you'll ever play. Now, Battle Network would have tons of sequels and spin-offs of its own, and I played all of them. But really, everything that I've said so far covers the whole Battle Network series. I don't want to spend too much time on them. I'll just say that the GBA games are generally good, the GameCube title sucks, and the PET toys are super cool. You should totally get one. So Game Boy Advance had the Battle Network series, and I was playing the heck out of those games. I was obsessed with the art style and the sprites, so much that I would download the sprites online and make edits of them. And that led me to this website called Sprites Inc., which would show me another Mega Man series that I had completely missed out on, and the next Mega Man series that I would completely obsess over. Mega Man Zero.
Game Boy Advance.
ゼロから始まる衝撃の新シリーズロックマンゼロカプコン
2002 would see the start of the Mega Man Zero franchise. And again, while the first title was extremely rough around the edges and incredibly difficult, just over a year later, the sequel would release and bring the franchise into a more familiar, polished territory that would feel more similar to the classic and X series. The first game tried to make the game a bit more linear, but still open world. The overall layout and loop of the gameplay just made it confusing and difficult to navigate. But the Zero franchise found its ground and expanded on the story of the X series. This was also a chance for Zero to finally be the main character, something series mainstay Keiji Inafune had wanted since the original Mega Man X. The game takes place in the original timeline and tells the story of Zero years into the future, where humans are once again under attack by robots, but this time under the alleged command of Mega Man X himself. I remember the first time that I saw the sprites for this game, it was on a website called Sprites Inc., and I couldn't get over the art style. It's divisive, some people love it, and others would prefer if they had just used the X art style, but these games needed an identity of their own, and in my opinion, the simpler character designs combined with the mechanical, apocalypse-style level aesthetics makes this feel like the future, where everything has been streamlined. It also actually makes sense that some of the characters look different. I don't want to spoil any of the story for you, I'll just say that not everyone is who they say they are, and sometimes you may not even be who you think you are. Now, how I got this game is actually a really funny story. I vividly remember begging my parents to go to a mall shopping for school clothes or something like that, when in reality, I had called the stores all around me and found out that this was the one local GameStop that had a copy of Mega Man Zero 2. Yeah, I was a pretty sneaky little shit, but I got the game and I was immediately excited about it. I remember looking at the box art while I was forced to shop for clothes that I just didn't care about. And then when I played it, it was everything that I had hoped it would be in a Mega Man game. It's more of a hack and slash game than a jump and shoot platformer. It even had some RPG elements. You have these cyber elves you can collect that give you new abilities and power-ups. And the movement in this game is legendary. Between the double jumps, dashes, and other abilities you can get that make movement even more fluid, these games are a speedrunner's dream. We can also talk about the Star Force and ZX series while we're here. Even though I've played these series, I don't really have that much to say about them. Star Force, to me, feels like a watered-down version of Battle Network. I know it has its fans, and I don't think they're bad games by any means, I just don't particularly care for them. And if I want to play a Mega Man deck-building game, I'm gonna play Battle Network. While I actually love the first Mega Man ZX game for allowing me to basically play as Harpuya from the Zero series, ZX Advent is a train wreck in my opinion. I still like it, but a lot of what they did in it didn't make any sense to me. I didn't like that you could turn into the bosses, and even when you did use that ability, it was usually just for one tiny section of the game, then you'd never use it again. I also didn't like the characters you played as. I don't know, it didn't appeal to me. And honestly, I'm not that sad that ZX3 got canceled. To me, Azure Striker Gunvolt is the superior spiritual successor anyway, and Legends 3 being canceled was the bigger insult to fans. Fight me. Gunvolt is a dude clad in blue with a gun and a tag and shoot style of gameplay. It shares its structure with Mega Man right down to the boss selection, giving new weapons after defeating the bosses, and just the general flow of the game's progress. And while we're talking about spin-off games, let's also talk about the first time that I saw Mega Man in Marvel vs. Capcom. We used to have an arcade in the local mall, I think it was called Flip, and one day I was in there with my dad playing games when I just happened to see a brand new Marvel vs. Capcom machine. And the preview for the game had Mega Man fighting the Hulk. Now, I don't think I need to do the math for you, but I love Spider-Man and I love Mega Man, And seeing Marvel and Capcom characters together blew my mind not only as a Mega Man fan, but as a gamer in general. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. This was, at the time, the most high-definition Mega Man sprite I had ever seen. And seeing him pull off all these moves and not just jumping and shooting kind of overloaded my senses. I played it for the rest of the night in the arcade, but then later I found a used copy in GameStop on the PlayStation 1. The copy that I have here is now what I personally believe to be the superior version of the game on the Sega Dreamcast. I actually got really good at it, but only as Mega Man. Since those days of my youth, I've continued to play Mega Man, the old games and the few new ones that we've gotten over the years. As the revival of the classic series happened, I was there. As the collections were released, I was there. As the mobile games came, I was there. When the spiritual successor released, oh, I was there. I'll never forget the Mighty No. 9 fiasco and how Azure Striker Gunvolt actually kind of saved us from it. I mean, really, Azure Striker Gunvolt is just Mega Man Zero with some extra added weeaboo shit thrown in. I have followed this little blue dude since I was 5 years old. I grew up with the guy. I just turned 30 myself. I still get excited when a new bit of news comes out about him, or when a rumor about a new game that might be coming gets spread. Mega Man has staying power, and it seems like every day more and more people are realizing it. Games from new developers, as well as people who worked on the original games, are now making games that are heavily inspired by the original Mega Man. Even if Mega Man isn't getting featured in as many new games as he did back in the day, the games that are released are always high quality. The spiritual successors are some of the best games that I've played in years. Fans are making the Mega Man games that they wanted to see, and introducing a new generation of people to him. My nephew is a huge fan of Mega Man, and I take full credit for that. I introduced him to Mega Man 2 at a very early age, just like I was, and now every time I see him, he wants to talk about Mega Man, or he wants to play Mega Man, and he's still discovering new things about Mega Man that I've kind of been drip feeding him. That's how I know Mega Man is always gonna be around in some capacity. The impact that these games have had on the people who played them means that in some way, the Blue Bomber will always live on. He may get blown into blue balls of flashing light every now and then, but he'll always be shooting lemons and jumping into our hearts.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Hi, my name is Rob Mann. I'm a Twitch streamer and YouTuber, and I've been obsessed with Mega Man since I was about 9 or 10 years old. Why do I love Mega Man? Well, there's a lot of reasons. I think mostly, as a kid, I fell in love with it because unlike most games where you have to hit start and then there's a certain or number of levels and they get done in a certain order, you go from left to right, you get to the end, you kill the boss, you move on. You could choose to fight the bosses in any order you wanted. I immediately fell in love with the art style, with the music, the gameplay, which was really, I mean, the controls even back then were excellent. So I mean, it was just such a great game and such a breath of fresh air. When I first saw the Mega Man 1 box art, I did not want to play it. Every time I looked at that box art, I just was like, there's no way. There was no way I'm going to play this game. My mom had rented a game for me for the weekend on her way home from work. She thought she was being nice. You know, I figured I should at least play it once to make her happy. I didn't want to be an ungrateful kid. And I put it in and I hit power. The startling difference between that box cover art and the actual game and how it looks and plays was night and day. It was unbelievable. You're this little blue guy, really cartoony, kind of squishy, that he could jump, he could shoot, he could take powers, he could blow up bad guys, he could freeze bad guys and use them as stepping stones. It was so cool. The real didn't set in until Mega Man 2. Back in those days, everything was a stealth, what they call now a stealth release. I mean, it showed up at a video store one day and I almost lost my mind. And Mega Man 2 was the one that I fell absolutely in love with the most.
Time to get serious.
The iconic soundtrack that has been remixed and redone and tributed and remade so many times. I love it. But that music is so iconic. Anyone and everyone who loves Mega Man will know the Mega Man 2 songs right away. They will know because they're just so great. And so Mega Man 2, when it came out, I rented it as soon as I saw it the first time. And I beat it that night, and I beat it again the next morning, and I played through it a third time before I had to return it. And then it just became a thing for me at least once a year until I bought a copy. I would rent it at least once a year, probably twice, and play through it, and play through it, and play through it, and play through it. Because it was just so refreshing, so fun, and so comforting to me at that point. I love it. Since then, I've played all of the Classic series, all of the X series, all of the Legend series, all of the Zero series. Incredible. It's just such a great series. From the art and the style differs from series to series, to the sort of the character designs, the narratives, a lot of the sort of the moral themes behind it as well. I think it's as relevant now as it was back then. I mean, it tackles a lot of very important social issues. Mega Man X covering the Reploids and the humans and the frictions between them and trying to maintain peace and why it's so difficult to maintain peace. Excellent, excellent stuff. I don't think, in my opinion, there is a more iconic game series than Mega Man. It's universally known. Capcom's first mascot. It's continuing to this day. We're still pushing for an X9 and a Legends 3. Fingers crossed. But, I mean, Mega Man is so much a part of me now that I well, my nickname online is Rob Mann because I love it that much. So, yeah, I think Mega Man always has been and always will be a classic series. And I think it's here to stay. I think it'll continue to be amazing into the future.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
I know for myself that Mega Man is much more than just a character or a video game series. Mega Man has defined a large part of who I am. As many pieces of art do for people, I think Mega Man has taught me how I want to be. To always fight for what I believe in, to try to protect those who can't do it for themselves, to try to be kind. And when you can't settle things peacefully, sometimes you have to fight for what you believe in. But violence is never the answer, and you should always avoid it at any cost. Because conflict is always the last resort for Mega Man. Except for that one time in Mega Man 7. I have a lot more that I could say when it comes to Mega Man, and maybe we'll do that later. But for now, I just wanted to document why I love Mega Man so much. I hope you enjoyed it, and maybe you'll like the video and subscribe, and I can see you next time. Well, I won't see you, but you'll see me. We're still waiting on that Battle Network collection, Capcom. You asked us to be patient. We've waited long enough! Hey guys, it's Jonathan here with Jonnicom. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It took a long time to edit. It took a really long time to do just the whole process. I did it all on my own. I'm sorry it got delayed a little bit, but I hope you enjoyed it and I hope it was worth it. It really turned into something that became a lot more personal to me than it was a full-on documentary, but I still tried to put some of the history stuff in there, and I think that's what makes this channel special is I can talk about stuff in a historic way, but also talk about the personal stories, which is something I really enjoy sharing because I think a lot of you probably have similar stories as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and please like and subscribe if you did. I'm setting up these other social things that I'll link here and put in the description. If you want to support me in any way, I'd really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks for watching.
Amazing. Yeah, I can barely hear you. It's so good. I heard a very small sample of this boss, but this is better than I could have imagined. Oh my god. This is one of the greatest bosses I have ever fought. Oh my god. It's making me just tear up with like... It's amazing. Oh my god.